Hamas has pledged to confront Israeli attacks with full force after Israel ramped up its bombardment of Gaza last night as its ground forces continued its incursions into Gaza. This morning, the IDF said its troops sent in on Friday night were still in the field, suggesting that a long-promised ground offensive, in fact, had begun. Israel says it struck 150 underground sites, including tunnels, underground combat spaces, and additional underground infrastructure overnight. At the same time, families of the 229 hostages being held by Hamas are demanding an urgent meeting with the Israeli war cabinet. They've described last night's assault as the most terrible of all nights. This morning, the area had been under an almost complete blackout, with internet and phone services cut for more than 12 hours. Telecom firms and the Palestinian Red Crescent Society says this was the result of the Israeli bombardments. It says that more aid is also expected today, suggesting a pause in the fighting. Yesterday, 6 aid trucks entered Gaza carrying urgent medical supplies as well as water purification equipment. A 10-person team of experts from the International Committee of Red Cross, including a war surgery team and a weapons contamination specialist, were part of the aid convoy that went through Rafah crossing. 7,326 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip since Israel's bombardment began. Well, let's cross to UNICEF South Africa's Chief of Communications, Toby Fricker, who is currently in Amman, Jordan. Toby, good afternoon, South African time, in fact. And thank you for your time with us here on the SABC. Perhaps for those who've tuned in and for context's sake, you could describe where exactly you are, why you're there, and also what the reality is that you're facing as we speak.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. So I'm currently in Amman, Jordan, supporting the response to the current situation inside the Gaza Strip. And what we're seeing is really a horrific situation for children across the Gaza Strip. We lost actually contact, as you just mentioned in your report, yesterday evening. We lost contact with staff in the Gaza Strip. So information coming out over the last 24 hours has been very minimal. But we're trying to sort of restore that as quickly as possible. But it's a massive concern. I mean, what we've seen is this escalation also in the last 24 hours. And really, there's no safe place for children inside the Gaza Strip right now as the hostilities escalate potentially even further.
Well, Toby, on the back of that, and thank you for that context, perhaps you could speak to the operations that are underway and that will be employed. Given the search and rescue teams also operating, I mean, what information at this point is also emerging? Are survivors also coming through? Help us really understand what's happening on the ground from your vantage point.
Yeah, so what we've heard is that teams have been responding almost in the blind. So when they've heard attacks, they've gone to respond to support people who may have been injured in those attacks just by the sound of where it is, or reports from friends or people on the ground sort of reporting that back. That's what we've heard through other NGOs, other partners over the last day. But what we've been doing as UNICEF, and what we keep calling for, is really the urgent need to scale up the life-saving supplies, that humanitarian access. But when we say that, we mean sustained. There has been some access, as you pointed out in your report, but it's been very minimal for the immense needs that are currently there. And as the UN Secretary General said, the first thing we need is an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. And the second thing is then to really scale up that humanitarian access so we can bring in supplies over a period of time, a sustained period of time, not just one-offs. Because we're seeing the protection issues are massive. We are worried about potential disease outbreaks where children, families are staying in shelters now in big numbers in densely populated areas. And that's a huge concern.
Toby, on the back of that, I wonder if you could also speak to what you're observing in Jordan itself. You are in Amman, and I wonder, since the developments overnight, you've spoken about the humanitarian access. How are our citizens of Jordan also responding?
Yeah, of course, this current crisis, this latest sort of escalation, of course, it affects everyone in the region massively. And UNICEF, we have that regional office here. We're supporting our colleagues as best we can in the state of Palestine, in the Gaza Strip specifically. But what's really critical, and we say it again, is that immediate humanitarian ceasefire, that access, humanitarian access, sustained level, but also then the release of hostages, particularly children, which is a grave violation. Children who should be with their families, children on any side who should not be exposed to such horrific levels of violence. And now in such a densely populated area, there really is no safe place for any child.
You speak about calls for ceasefire, perhaps also the support and the aid that's needed given the escalations. Is a truce on the cards at any point? Are we edging closer to any solution given the mammoth destruction that you're witnessing?
Well, we need a solution as quickly as possible. That's what we've all been saying. UNICEF is saying, the UN Secretary General has been saying that. We need a solution because we've seen, reportedly now more than 3,000 children have died in the Gaza Strip. Reportedly more than 6,000 are injured. And let's not forget those children who are injured or maimed. The hospitals are already struggling to cope. And now they're having to take in children injured in the conflict. It's a massive challenge. They just don't have those resources. We've spoken about the issues with fuel, which run the hospitals, run the generators, and then that's very limited. That's very rationed. You have also everyday life. You have 5,500 births that are due to happen over the coming weeks. You have around 50,000 pregnant women, all of whom need support, need hospital support, medical care, and that's a massive concern. Looking forward, even this everyday life that has to go on as well.
Toby, just very quickly, you spoke about sustainable solutions as well, given the precarious situation. I just wonder, how long will you be in the area? And really just remind us of the type of support that you are obviously going to be giving out. How do people also support?
Yeah, so people can support UNICEF by going to the UNICEF website. We have a humanitarian appeal that's been revised up now for the state of Palestine to $23 million to support our life-saving work for children currently affected. And I'm here to support that as best I can for a period of time. But we really call out for that support to help scale up donations to scale up our own work in the state of Palestine, in the Gaza Strip. But first of all, we really need that safety for everyone, that safety for children on the ground, the safety for families, civilians, and then also humanitarian workers who have been so affected by this. We've had the UN agency, UNRWA, have lost more than 50 staff members. Our staff members are trying to do a job while also looking after their own family, and then that's incredibly stressful and difficult, of course.
Toby, let's leave that conversation there. Thank you for your time with us on the SABC.